Okay, I stepped away for like 40 minutes, but I came back and I picked up where I left off. I just started to record and elaborate on the information that I was talking about. I was talking about Highland Square Library and what took place there. And they made, I don't know where the video went. So they made sure it didn't show. I don't have any reference of it. And I also played the video that I was talking about from yesterday. So I'm just going to I'm going to show you what I have so far, and then I'll continue. Okay, today is the 25th of November. Um, if you have not watched A, B, C, and D, obviously watch those first. Um, Did I get a chance to mention Noah is actually in this video? I started it yesterday while I was at the storage unit and I didn't get a chance to finish. So what I was saying is the importance. I was noting the importance in making sure that you view these videos in order. That's part of perception management. You know, if you don't get the parts in order, you know, if you get them out of order, it manages how you perceive the situation. It can affect how you perceive the situation because you're obviously missing parts. So I'm going to pick up where I left off, and I left off on the nuisance neighbors part of the update, the part that they've been trying to keep me from doing the most. Yesterday, let me tell you something. They sacrificed the work that I did yesterday. So when I went to the library today, it was missing. I told you that I have a digital journal that I started on the 22nd of October. It was like the day that I put my planner away. I told you the stock on my planner went up when I began to pull the curses from it. I was taking note of the curses that they were using. Whether they played out a week, a month, or 6 months later, I had them noted. It was already written. So as I began to gather those, I was going to put it into a spreadsheet similar to what I did with the places that I go, you know, to combat disinformation. And like I said before, that sort of information wouldn't be as valuable to you as it would to, say, an elite entity. Okay, today is the... Okay, this is just a real quick caveat on the digital journal. The only place that that link can be found is in a video that's titled Chipped Tooth. They recently chipped another one of my teeth on the 27th of October. And that's like after stealing one of my earrings, and it was something else that they did. But none of that matters. So it's titled Chipped Tooth, parenthesis 2, parenthesis. There's 3 parts to that video, but it can only be found, the link can only be found in part 2. So make sure you view the digital journal because it has all these events that played out, you know, and it actually helps put this entire matter into perspective, how these covert operations play out. They're jamming my thoughts. I was going to say that it's scheduled for release. Initially, it was scheduled to release on the 12th. This just shows you how I've had to like extend this project. Like, it was scheduled to release on the 12th, and then I rescheduled it for the 25th, which is today, and then I rescheduled it today for the 27th. So it'll be available soon, sometime soon, picking up where I left off. Thoughts to get dressed and leave. Okay, today is the 24th of November. If you have not viewed parts A, B, C, and D, watch those first. Initially, I planned on composing all those parts today, but as you can imagine, you know, there was some type of interference. When it comes to my mornings, they completely screw my mornings up. And in part, that's by keeping me up to 7 a.m. And when they see me start to form the thoughts to get dressed and leave, they sedate me. Next thing I know, I'm waking up. So anyhow, this part is about Noose's neighbor. This portion of it is updating you on what took place. It's been months ago now that I mentioned a mini smearing campaign, and I'm going to talk about what became of that, but I'm also going to talk about some other things, how they've been using my efforts to invert the neighbors. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that I've had to put these videos in parts this way, because what happens is you'll see A has, we're going to use real numbers because this is my reality right now. A has 36 views, B has 26, C has 132, D has 10 views, and part E will have 136. Which means that's perception management. If you're not getting all of the information at the same time, that's managing how you perceive the matter. You need to get all this information at the same time. That's why I keep reminding at the beginning of these videos to make sure you watch, go in order. 1 second. My camera timed out. Okay, part D ended with 4 questions. The truth is, none of the neighbors on Upland Avenue in Akron, Ohio, have a reason to be mad. The underlying problem is they know that I know what they're doing. And I remember how they behaved last year, which means I know who was and was not acquainted last year, because I witnessed them pass one another by and not speak the entire year. I spent a lot of time on my porch, and there were the 2 white females are the only 2 that spent a portion, of the time on the porch. I'd occasionally witnessed them come out. That's 302 and 310. I'm surrounded by entities that will pretend they don't know what's going on till they can't, and now they hate me over the truth. The neighbors on Upland Avenue represent world problems. The agents that own the identities represent businesses and corporations. The United States is a corporate entity. So are states and cities that fall under it. Fact is, anyone who claims to be a believer will have examined the information closely on making a pretty big claim. But you want to make sure that you didn't embarrass yourself. Wait until you see how stupid they sound. They have privately mocked, ridiculed, and let their inside conversations leak outside. Non-human reactions are being evoked because there's guilt. Guilt always shows. I have an idea. Hold on 1 moment. Okay, so I was saying that guilt always shows. I have an idea of who they've been their entire lives. Know that they weren't able to attract and could tell what they would and wouldn't do. I knew they act like they couldn't see who I am to be inverted for their situations to improve. So that means that they would denounce my hard work and efforts, them seeing me on foot and knowing that I spend most of my day, I was saying them seeing me on foot and knowing that I spend most of my days at the library. I'm telling you, it's just a completely heartless type situation. They're accustomed to seeing hardships. And it's very obvious when someone's experiencing a hardship that shouldn't be. I fit that description. So, if you know them, don't be fooled by their excuses. They were acting a motherfucking fool. Matter of fact, because I just touched on perception management, if you know them, look at the topics that I discuss. Look at the facts that are associated with the topics that I discuss. Then look at Susan or Krayshawn's crazy ass demon, having a case of can't take. As simple as that. So anyhow, adults are supposed to be mindful of speaking loosely and untruthfully, not to display behavior that would bear consequence. Okay, so I'm telling you now, something that's never changed about me. Like, when the devil tries me, I throw that bitch right out the window.
They could not have caught me at a better time. I've never tolerated it.
I don't give a fuck whose identity is using.
They could not have caught me at a better time.
I don't give a fuck who identity is using. And I call it what it is. You hear me referring to a lot of these things as bitches and all kind of stuff. Like, you can't ever, you don't hear me. No one would, folks that know me would tell you that that's not even how I communicate. But I'm in a situation where I know exactly who they are. So anyhow, the devil don't like being hit, and they'll disrespect you and expect an argument for what should cost their motherfucking lives. Like I just said, adults are supposed to be mindful to not speak loosely or untruthfully. So, okay, today is the...
Okay, one thing, this is not what I was about to do, but I was going through this to make sure I didn't have anything else. While going through it, I found the interference that I was experiencing at the green room. And, you know, when you hear me say it, it's one thing, but when you see it play out, it's another. And I had a video of it, and I was going to play it, and I actually, I think I actually accidentally deleted it. But that's like a first. I had it selected while I was deleting another video. And now it's gone. I really wanted to let you see the type of... Anyhow, all these videos are examples of that type of stuff. And I'm not going to get to it in this. But I said that to say that if I uploaded every type of interference that I experienced, that I wouldn't have room to record anything else. I would not have room to record anything else. For example, this Dr. Joseph Menyakaden video that I'm going to show in a little bit. For 3 days, they've been getting rid of it. I've recorded this on 4 separate occasions. Today was the first time I actually got it, you know, and nothing happened to it. So, what made that video that I was going to show so instrumental was that I was using the Mac PC. That was the day that I reserved the green room. It was the 3rd of November. And I was trying to put parts together. Not even put parts together. I was working on this same video. But I was recording with my camera at the same time. And they would not allow my outline to open. So when I was opening the outline, I downloaded and opened it, and it would load like 11 pages of 21. So I was missing a lot of pages. I read through the error message, and it still didn't describe or give me a solution. So I downloaded it again and went through the same thing, and I ended up having to read it from my phone just for, you know, that 2-hour section to turn into 7 minutes of work anyhow. And that's actually what you saw in Part A. Part A is that 2-hour session that took place on the 3rd of November. Okay, back to picking up where I left off. Between the government and I, it turned in, like I said before, I know who these entities are. So between the government and I, it turned into a fight for my gene expressions. It turned into a complete blown out fight for my gene expression. And that's why a lot of the scientific attacks were being made to keep certain facial expressions from showing up. And I talked about that in another video already. You know, like if you watch this video or these videos versus these set of videos, you can see that my expressions were lesser, and it had nothing to do with the amount of fat that they had packed on me, but more so to do with how they were restricting RNA and adding malignant cells to keep the face from moving like it normally would. So, turned into a fight for gene expressions. If you look, oh, it's this video where I noted. I just knew that I went over this information already. I've gone over it so many times that I could not recall that this was the video I noted it in. Forgive me. So anyhow, so if you look at drawing awareness videos versus spring summer 2019 videos and divine disclosures, it becomes apparent and obvious that they were attacking my RNA and my range of expressions were absent as they pretended to be me. So you can imagine it's if they're you know, like they're calling me others and trying to apply their debt to me. You know, looking they're looking for a way to look at others like they are me, so they may add an expression that they didn't have before, to make things align. So the this, like I said before, is not as much of a aerial problem as it is a world problem. You know, like just my bloodline's DNA. The government has no business having access to DNA at all. I've said that over and over again. So but it did become more offensive because they were using such lower vibrational frequencies, and because I witnessed them be, you know, as they normally are, and then make these extreme changes, you know, like, I'm not going to get into it. I'll show it to you once this gets out. It was insulting. You know, small minds with bad thoughts and ugly features. You know, this is the type of things, this is the type of stuff that they were doing. So, they were changing the neighbors right in front of me and mocking. They were mocking what they were doing nonstop. So, initially I was going to go like, house by house and just kind of tell you know some of the changes that they made and stuff like that, but I think I'm just going to hit on a few and not go into as much detail because I'm trying to kind of make this video as short as I possibly can. I need to upload it tonight. So for 318, for example, there's a set of twins that live there. They were appearing on the bus, and this is the type of activity that these type of teens and stuff display, you know, that no one knows that they display. And if I would have beat their motherfucking ass, you know what I'm saying, they would have been looking at me like I was wrong, because no one's taken into account how the devil's using kids to antagonize adults. I don't even have no business being in that type of situation. But that's exactly what they were doing because I was on the bus. And I have a couple of videos of it. It's in storage. They didn't want to look handicapped anymore. When I first saw these teens at the bus stop, it was apparent that they were ill. And because I took notice of it, I told you, it never has to be, insult doesn't come until you insult me. I witnessed a lot of things. I've witnessed a lot of things in life. The insult, and I witnessed them with no judgment. Insult does not come until you insult me. So when this behavior began, you know, when they just started to behave this particular sort of way, you know, to not look that way, you know, I was cussing the motherfucking agents that are remotely harassing me out. So anyhow, they didn't want to look handicapped anymore, so they changed their appearance and they got them off the bus. They got them off the bus. And guess what? Every time they invert one of them, they claim that they're inverting me. So if you didn't know, like, I'm pretty sure you can figure that part out by now. Like, I believe in public embarrassment. So like, once this gets out, there's going to be like a lot of showing and telling. There's no limit to the amount of shame I will inflict on the devil. None. So, but and in other cases, some of them were like sloth demons. You know, the sloth demon is the one that can't get out of bed before noon. And they love young black boys. And they love just young kids in general. Like, you know, but not as much as they love young black boys. They are the least likely to succeed. So, an example of the type of curses that were involved. Hold on one second. Okay, so like I said, the curses and the spells were already written. Aside from that, the absolute best thing about this entire situation is there's an entire script of the Devil's Exchange, remote neural monitoring. Just like my thoughts are being monitored, you can see the government's communication with me. You'll see the government's communication with me. The same goes for those that they're using. You get what I'm saying? That's the absolute best part about this entire situation. They finally run into someone or come across the one that won't allow them to back out or hide behind their laws. So, so like there's an entire 3-year script of my argument and how they went. So you'll see my argument, how they went against my argument. There's exchange with neighbors. I'm talking about not exchanges. There's scripts for neighbors. There's script for relatives. There's script for medical professionals. There's script for police officers. There's scripts for lawyers. All of them have a script of exactly what they were thinking, how they were being communicated with, and what might have influenced their thoughts during that time. So that's time and dated. That's time and dated neural responses and communications associated with me being conspired against. I'm talking about this project again, but I've already mentioned it, so I think I'm going to skip this part. Okay, the only thing that I said different about my planner being involved and the stock going up and me putting it away in storage was that I recorded me trying to catch them in the act. You know, like, I don't play that shit. None of them say anything when they see me. This is the shadiest activity you've ever seen. And you know I tried to catch them in the act and recorded me trying to catch them in the act. And them disappearing from outside. Like, you literally see in these videos them being outside one moment. You can tell they're being informed. So they be outside and, like, I get dressed quick. Like, under a minute. Quick. And make my way to the door and outside. In other occasions, not as quick. You know, like, I'm not saying every video where I've done that is going to be that way, but most of them are. And when I get outside, there's no one outside. So disappearing from outside, inform agents. Cursing and spelling. I'm about to talk about. Cursing and spelling. Cursing and spelling began as soon as they surfaced in March 2017. They're able to get people to do and think things they have no reason to. For example, while in California, they had an odd deputy, like the deputy's obviously odd, like a weird. A lot of these things are, but weird guy. But they were able to get him to not see innocence. He couldn't hear innocence in my voice. He couldn't look at me and see innocence. He couldn't detect anything about me innocent, and he accused me of smoking meth. And then, a couple years later, look at the situation that plays out. And they were trying to use that. They were blaming that on me. There's no many times. There's no no many times. There's no telling how many times a substance like that has appeared in my system without me having any of the effects. Because the reed is a reed that's being used on the government. It's being used covertly. So it's not like I go and get a drug test and piss hot. And you probably saw in old videos where I have pee. I have urine that I was keeping to get tested because of all the things that they were doing to me. They were putting this stuff in my esophagus. They were blowing smoke out of my mouth. They were removing food from my stomach. They were adding foreign. The whole food situation was to suggest that I was with others. They were claiming that I was eating what they were eating, and they were trying to claim that I didn't cook. Okay, so anyhow, back to cursing and spelling. I'm going to read over this really quick. Like I said, I'm supposed to be trying to get done with this video, and it seems like it's just turning into a long situation. Cursing and spelling. The deputy, his name is M. Diaz, Rancho Cucamonga, accused me of smoking meth. Cursing and spelling because I just about all the time, I'm referencing it again, cursing and spelling because I just about all the time reference both. Reference and mention both cursing and spelling. They utter in misworded statements as they apply scientific attacks with intent to harm and cause misfortune. Okay? And I'm going to tell you the difference between cursing and spelling in a second. But at a glance, that's what it is. They utter misworded statements as they apply scientific attacks with intent to harm and cause misfortune. So these are like, this kind of debunks, like I've said in the past, like the information that I disclose is debunks the mental health care field. This stuff that their government's doing, it also debunks all your myths. So if you've ever, Louisiana, for example, they're big for voodoo. And then before voodoo, witchcraft has a an era. The government's behind all that. Nothing changes but the time. And they do the same thing over and over again. So, since the next segment is on the neighbors cursing and spelling, surrounding those identities, both cursing and they're tying my words up. Hold on. Okay, they're mad about me being on camera. So I'm just gonna take a break from it. Not to satisfy them, but to get through this. Let's see how much my reading changes. Okay, so cursing and spelling. Surrounding the identities in the neighborhood began when I moved in, like literally right away, December 2018. It was apparent that they made some changes to 311 ahead of time based off of me going to the Firestone Branch Library once or twice prior. And that was 2014, 2015. You know, they're well calculated and they use everything that they can against you. So if they had a reference of me being there, they use that and apply it to someone else. Does that make sense? That's a place for someone to go and try to align themselves. Okay, so before any of this happened, they were already working on that. That was already in the mix. As soon as they knew for sure that they were able to kind of steer me to this at. Okay, so as soon as they knew that they were able to kind of steer me into this neighborhood, you know, like the more sure that they got about that, you know, as they're watching events unfold, you know, they conspired against me at the hospital in 2018. Not even that. In 2017, you know, when they were orchestrating the events and no support with those that I knew, they knew that I was going to, one, get out of my mother's place, because I've always had a place of my own. And you know, whenever someone goes home to their mother, it should not be seen as a wait till I show you what that was like. Because keep in mind, that's an agent using my mother's identity. So wait till I show you what that was like. Anyhow, these things were in the mix before I got to this area, is what I'm saying. They So to align the activity, you know, they lied and said she was me. They had her make a couple of appearances, and then there's always they're always instructed to stay away. Meanwhile, she lives right next door to me. Understand the difference between internal and external harm when looking at cursing and spelling. There's a paragraph missing from this. I said something else in between. I went into the definition on cursing. But understand the difference between internal and external harm, which is why cursing is known to invoke a supernatural occurrence, none other than science and chemical stimuli. Chemical stimuli is it's a potion. Oh my goodness, they are mad. Okay, so I was saying that the supernatural occurrence is none other than science, and the chemical stimuli is the potion. The practice of evil fate, calling on a god or gods, which is governmental ordinance departments, to send evil or injury down on something or some person. A profane and obscene or blasphemous oath is what a curse is. Spelling, on the other hand, is a word formula or form of words having some magic power or irresistible influence, charm, or fascination, a trance to win the complete affection of someone or something. To make out or discern as by close reading, a turn of serving or working in place of another, a period or a turn of work duty. There's no way to protect your ear gates from the type of spelling and cursing that these agents do. Like when you look at the type of folks when you look at the type of folks, these groups that are associated with gang stalking, you know, there's targeted individuals. There's few that don't associate themselves with a term, and they too will say they're being gang stalked. They do not say that this is the type of experience that they're having. They're not being cursed and spelled all day. If they were, they'd lose their fucking minds. But literally, as long as I'm awake, they don't stop talking. And like I said, there's no way to protect your ears from it. All you can do is try to interrupt to break the curse. Like keep them from being able to complete a sentence. And the problem with that is I've put great effort into it. Like and they were acting like I didn't combat the attacks. So since this entity owns the population, they're posing as all sides, and they're just kind of playing it whichever way they decide to play it. A persecutor, not a persecutor, a precursor is something that must take place before something else can be done. To obtain, when used in the same sentence as cursing and spelling, is to obtain a desire. So they're cursing and spelling to obtain something that the demon wants. And like, as the visual shows, they're like, wherever there's a port, that's where they plug in. They're talking about how you can tell in my face that they're attacking me. Hold on one second. Okay, so a precursor is something that they it's something that they need before they can get something that they want. To obtain a desire, they need something of mine to sacrifice. So in my case, a precursor is a stolen item, or a I told you they've murdered a lot of my relatives since this has been taking place. So the government takes, in order to get the desire that they want, within geographical groups. The curse is a lie told to form a suggestion by way of subconscious mind attacks. The lie is always the opposite of the truth, of course, in my view. They were keeping me up at night and attacking me with science, applying extreme tension to my neck and back, raping the clone, giving me the negative effects that of the drugs that the neighbors were doing, remotely harassing me, and spelling and cursing the entire time. The entire point of keeping me up is so that they can pretend that I was a part of the scenario that they're claiming I was a part of. That's the entire reason behind it. And as you saw, I went many, 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 many nights with no sleep. And this is being done to apply karmic debt of others and keep my gene expressions from showing. So I've noticed the changes and the blatant mockery that's associated with the activity in the neighborhood. But like I said, that's just one of many places. That's aside the agents telling me so. Like once they've stolen from you to obtain a desire, they stay away to maintain what they've stolen and pretend that they are acquainted with you as a link, another identity that they own. Wicked principles that only requires they be in the same area as you. So you guys never have to speak a word, never have to do anything. The two of you will never have an exchange. It's all based off remote harassment. That's what's being used to act and take and steal. Okay, so these examples right here that you see, where there's an energy port, all these things are associated with an energy center. Um, the type of things that you can manifest with that type of energy. And obviously, like I've said about other examples, when I talk about DNA and stuff like that, this is just like a matter of what comes to mind right away. Like, it is, if I was able to access my thoughts the way I'm supposed to be able to ask my thoughts, these would be much better examples, is what I'm saying. But they've inverted relatives, strangers from the homeless shelter, Haven of Rest, Summa Corporation, University of Akron, Akron Police Department, the landlord, neighbors. Did I say relative or neighbors first? Businesses and corporations, mergers, contracts, assets, and ledgers. They're attacking me to obtain these things. So it goes far beyond Akron. There's only 14 or 15 states I haven't been to. The entire time that this has been going on, they administer remote inoculation, which is a remote injection that's being done to corrupt the code and suggest that I was someone I'm not. So that's where that whole calling me them and calling them I comes from. If they're stealing from these energy centers, obviously they're trying to get rid of something so that they can manifest. Right? Okay. So in variation, sometimes businesses. So they will receive favor. Trying to make as many changes as they could and establish a new norm. Females who couldn't speak at a certain volume last year in this neighborhood for not wanting to draw attention to themselves now have the confidence to be loud. They're moving faster. They're doing a little more than they were able to do before I got here. And that's the thing about DNA theft. Like, you have to look at what you've been able to achieve your entire life this far. And what's the sudden change? The mind's fully developed by your late teens. And it's probably even sooner than that. That's what scientific scholars have noted. Because I've been the same way, like I said, my entire life. I've had the same mentality, the same views my entire life. So, in order for someone to start thinking different and be able to produce a result that they could not produce before, you should give it a look. Let's see. Especially in the lower tier, because they're just not able. Like, these are minds in shackles for a reason. Like, when they're attacking these energy centers on you, it keeps you from being able to feel. It keeps you from being able to do. It keeps you from being able to love. It keeps you from being able to speak. It keeps you from being able to see. It keeps you from being able to know. So what changed without you doing the work? You get what I'm saying? And in my case, like or in this neighborhood, sabotage is what's taking place to obtain those desires that they could not otherwise attract. And I'm going to get into that in a little bit. But at any rate, it's noticeable changes. Those that were calling the cops behind being hit on have not had to. And I showed you the photos that are associated with that. They were putting their dogma on me, claiming that they were me and I was them, to get them out of those situations. remotely swelling my face. And I've never been in a domestic relationship in my life. These entities are selfish as fuck and will do anything to not be looked at for who they are. Okay, so the whole link situation, like I said, at some point, they have to act like they're acquainted with me, and that's kind of what they've been using the library for. That's a place that I go to regularly, and sometimes they flood the place to act like I'm acquainted with those that I'm isolated. I'm completely isolated, which means I'm in contact with no one. But they're taking advantage of the location and all the identities in the area. And guess what? Since they're posing as me, they're showing up in places that I go and also places that I have not been to suggest that it's not happening to me, that nothing's being done to me. In addition to that, these appearances support the she's acting like don't no one do nothing for her curse. I'm the only one that does anything for me. And the crazy part about that is, as long as this matter is kept silent, they'll do as much, like I said, as they possibly can to get ahead. But if I go off, they're going to attest to the truth. They're absolutely going to end up attesting to the truth. Stupid try to get ahead. This is happening all over the world as a result of being stuck in one city on foot. Appearances, stakeholders, no one is doing. They do things that are similar to support disassociation. When they try to disassociate themselves with anything that I'm reporting, they change things. So I'm going to show you something in a second. Disassociate themselves with alarms. From the alarms that I set off, they were, okay, check this out. They were pretending that they were chastising the neighbors, but they were calling me them and attacking me with science. And it got to a point where when I would curse them, when I would curse the government, when I would curse the devil, I began to see that the words were repelling. They were starting to ricochet. The words began to ricochet. And that was an indicator, that they were using the clone against me. Me for rejecting them remotely. And I told you all of the type of rejection that's taking place as far as any one that comes across me goes has taken place remotely. Said I wouldn't remember. They've told them that I wouldn't remember things. We told motherfuckers she wouldn't know who they are, and she always do something to let them know she remembers who they are. I haven't. That phone conversation part isn't necessary. So now I'm gonna get into some of this other stuff. And I'll do the best that I can to reiterate these things that have taken place, but they are jamming my thoughts really bad right now. This is everything that I'm about to say are things that they don't want me to say. Okay, I'm gonna go another route because they're really not allowing the thoughts to form. This is the basic layout of a house. I told you we've all been caught in some pretty standard positions our entire life. This is the layout of the street that I live on. Okay, so the whole lying about my location thing, that's been caught in some of my photos. I've put that on Facebook. So they were pretending I either live here, They were pretending I was here. And when they weren't pretending I was there, they was calling that my mother. They was pretending that I was there, pretending I was there. And they have new tenants now. They're doing this. They do the same thing every time. Pretending I was here. They were 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 pretending I was here. Now this is this is nothing but a street. If you look at a map, let me show you something. The same thing was being applied to the neighborhoods that I walked through. And not only that I walked through, like in this current situation, like I said, there's only 14, 15 states I haven't been to. So this just gets, it's all about eliminating the lower tier. So to support those suggestions, sometimes they would claim that Upland Avenue wasn't Upland Avenue and that I was somewhere else. So, they add something. That's what parallel reality is. It's making it look like you're somewhere that you're not. So they add something. This street no longer appears. This isn't what Upland Avenue looks like. Maybe a half a decade ago before they tore some of the houses down. But this looks like your average street. It looks like many average streets. And sometimes, you have and this could go either way. You get what I'm saying? So to disassociate themselves, what the neighbors were doing is they were playing the trash can game. Get my little piece of... Hold on. And keep in mind, I told you that these are different agents with different entities that represent different businesses and corporations. So they're always under... This house doesn't know what that house knows, but they all know that I'm the threat. You get what I'm saying? This house doesn't know what... But they all know that I'm the threat. So the trash can game. This, they would do things to align, to resemble. And then they do things to disassociate it. So that means that at times, someone that went from only having 1 or 2 trash cans would now have 3. And if I set off an alarm, they add another and have 4. You get what I'm saying? In addition to that, they were playing the vehicle game. In addition to that, they were playing the vehicle game. They add more vehicles to the area, get rid of a vehicle, all kind of stuff. I could talk about the things they've gained since this has been going on, but I'm not. That's obvious. The best part about this too is folks know these people. They know who they were and who they've been. So if a 99 Toyota Corolla has always been your life, and now suddenly, you know what I'm saying? Like the invert is obvious. And in the city of Akron, is obvious too. There was a time where you didn't see Maseratis around here. And now it's flooded with them. Phantoms and, all kind of stuff surfaces now.